Hi everybody, and welcome to my first ever YouTube sew along. I am so excited to finally get this going for you guys and to walk you through what we're going to be making today, which is this shirt. So I got invited to do a really fun collaboration with the Fold Line and Simplicity patterns, and the challenge was to hack the pattern that you choose. So the pattern I chose was Simplicity 8658. And this pattern is really neat because it's actually made to be hacked, and they give you lots of fun ideas, different cut lines of ways that you can alter this pattern to make it your own. I love making shirts. They're usually pretty quick sews, and I can throw them on with jeans. I made this particular top to wear for the fall and for any holiday parties we have coming up, and I'm just so thrilled with how it turned out. So let me walk you guys through what we're going to be doing. So this particular top is inspired by a ready-to-wear shirt that I found recently at Target. I just fell in love with this balloon sleeve with this cute ruffle cuff, and so this is what I'm going to walk you guys through. I cropped the top first of all because it's a lot longer, the original pattern, and I will walk you through how I cropped the sleeve right here, altered the pattern to add gathering, and how I sewed this really cute little elastic cuff on the bottom of the shirt. But overall, I'm so happy with this top. It's so cute. I love the leopard, it's so fun. And I also will walk you through, I finished the neckline a little differently than the pattern calls for. I added a little neck binding there to finish that up, and then it ties in the back, which I'll show you some pictures at the end. Overall, I am so happy with how it turned out. There's nothing else I would change from the tutorial you're about to watch, so I hope you guys enjoy it. This is my first ever sew along video, so I want you guys to let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this style of sew along and if you want to see some more from me. I'm hoping to get some more up if you guys like this video, so let me know. I will link the fabric, the pattern, any tools that I used in this video down below, as well as my blog post, and I hope you guys enjoy.
Okay, so I am deciding on what size I should cut out, and I get a lot of questions about this, so I thought I would just go over it with you guys and show you my process. Okay, so I am gonna look at the bust measurement because this shirt's so blousy and we're gonna be cropping it. At least I'm going to be cropping it, so nothing else really matters. So for the bust, I am like 33.5 to 34 inches. So that puts me at a size small. I always like to go look at the finished measurements of the garment when I'm deciding if I should size down or not. And these patterns tend to have a lot more ease than is needed. So it says finished bust is 39 inches. And so that's adding a lot of ease. This is a really blousy shirt, but even on this person, it looks like it's a little bit big on them, in my opinion. And I have a very small bust too, so I'm like a size A, 34 typically. But I usually don't do a bust adjustment because I'm just too plain lazy. So here's the pattern. What I think I'm going to do, I'm going to compromise because I am a little nervous about sizing down a whole size. So what I'm going to do, this is the bodice front. So what I'm going to do is cut between the size extra small and small, so it's not quite so big. And if it still feels really big, I can always take it in on the side seams a little bit more. So I'm going to do in between the size extra small and small, so I'm sizing down a half size. Technically, so between these two guys. But yeah, that's what I like to do. I always look at the finished garment measurements first and then decide if I should size down or not. So that's my little tip for you when it comes to figuring out your pattern size. Okay, so what we're going to do to create this shirt hack or sleeve hack. So this pattern comes with a sleeve front and a sleeve back. So what we're going to need to do is draw a line where you would like the gathering for the bottom part of the sleeve to begin. That's where we're going to be cutting the sleeve in half, and I'm going to show you guys how we slash and spread this open to create some gathering right here. And then we will need to add a seam allowance on both sides, both edges of the sleeve. We're going to do this to the front and back sleeve, and then I'll walk you through how I finish it to copy the Target shirt. So let's begin. Okay, so I'm getting ready to prep my sleeves to slash and spread them. And so I held the sleeve up to my arms. This is the sleeve front and the sleeve back. And I decided that, so this is the line that I drew. And I decided that wasn't quite long enough. So I ended up drawing a line 2 inches down from the last line on both sleeves. So this is the last line on the back, last line on the front, and then I measured 2 inches down from this line. This is where I'm going to cut my sleeve. And here's the same line here, 2 inches down. Ignore this one, this is my first marking. That's not quite what I wanted. So I'm going to cut this now at this line I drew 2 inches down from the last line on the sleeve patterns. Okay, so here are the 2 tops of my sleeves. Or this is one sleeve. And so what we're going to do now is add our seam allowance at the bottom of each sleeve top. And since the seam allowance is 3/8 inches, I'm just going to do the same down here so I don't have to remember what I decided to do. So I'm going to add seam allowance to these, and then we will go to the next step. And now I've added the 3/8 seam allowance. This is what it should look like. I just used some tracing paper. I like to use medical exam paper for hacking my patterns or creating patterns. I will link to that in the notes underneath my video. But anyways, so this is done. This is what the sleeve tops should look like. And now we're going to grab the bottom of our sleeves, and I'm going to show you guys how I prep them to slash and spread. Okay, so first things first, we're going to need to add, at least for me, in my arms, I'm adding 1 inch of length to the bottom of the sleeve because we're going to be folding under 1/4 inch, and then about another 1.5 inches or 1 inch or so. So I added another inch so that it hits about just a little bit above my wrist. So it's not a full long sleeve, but a little bit above my wrist. So it's almost a long sleeve. That's kind of what I'm going for. So add whatever length you would like to add to your sleeve. I kind of have long arms and I needed about 1 inch. So I'm just gonna finish up the bottom of the sleeve and then we will move on. Okay, so after you add the desired length to the bottom part of your sleeve front and sleeve back, we need to divide them up into quarters to add the extra fullness that we're going to need so we can gather this part to the top of the sleeve. I'm not going to add any more fullness to the bottom of the sleeve because in our pattern it's already meant to be gathered, but we just need it to be gathered right here where we're going to be connecting the sleeves. So I figured out, so this is about 17 inches total per sleeve, because remember this is one whole sleeve right here. I multiplied it by 1.5, so we have 1.5 times the volume for the gathering right here, or whatever. So I'm going to add 1.5 inches to each line. So what we're gonna do is cut all the way down this line just before the end right here. We're going to keep this little tiny bit attached. So I'm going to cut my lines. I'm going to put some tracing paper behind each line. I'm going to spread each one out 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, 1.5 inches, tape it all down, and then we're going to have our added fullness and we'll be ready to move on. So I'm going to do that and show you what it looks like. Okay, one more thing I forgot to tell you guys. In order to figure out where to draw your lines, I just folded my sleeve into quarters. I can't do this with one hand. Basically, I folded it in half and then I folded it in half one more time, opened it up, sorry, it's getting late over here. And where the fold lines were, I just put a little mark. Sorry, I've been playing around with measurements and figuring it out. So yeah, just fold it in 2 quarters, put your marks on there, draw your lines. You have 3 lines that you're drawing. And then this is me getting ready to slash it. So you're gonna cut along the line just to the very edge, but you're gonna leave that little part connected so we can spread these out and add 1.5 inches between each slash. Okay, so you're going to want to roll out some tracing paper. I've got my big roll here. I taped down the first piece, and then I'm going to measure 1.5 inches up here and tape this all down right here. And then I'm gonna do the same thing on this slash, and then the same thing on this slash. So they're all evenly spread out 1.5 inches. And then we're going to connect the top and true it, and then we're gonna do the same thing to the next sleeve. So I'm gonna get that started. Okay, so this first slash is finished. So then I'm gonna just take my ruler. I'm going to find 1.5 inches and draw a little mark there. And then put this guy in place and tape the next slash down. So that's how it is coming so far. Okay, so here is the bottom of my sleeve, front, all finished. It is not perfect, but it will work, I think. Only thing I'm not so sure about is this top line. It just looks a little bit uneven to me, so I might redo that. But basically, the top of the sleeve, I've straightened it out because that's how it started and it needs to connect right there. And we need to add a 3/8 seam allowance. Once we are happy with this line, I'm gonna go back and redo that. And then I've also straightened out the bottom hemline of the sleeve as well. So that's about the idea of what this will look like. I'm gonna go do the sleeve back now and straighten out this line and add our 3/8 seam allowance, and then we will be ready to move on. Okay, sorry the lighting is horrible in here, but I've got my sleeve front and back, bottoms slashed and spread with the added fullness at the top here where they're going to be gathered to the bottom of the sleeve. And the tops of my sleeves with the added seam allowances on everything. And so now what we need to do is, okay, so now we need to figure out what length we would like our tops to be. So this is the shirt front and the shirt back. And I held it up to myself and decided, so this is the final line on the pattern before the hemline. So I'm going to just add, I cut it at that line, but I actually want it to be a little bit longer, I decided. So that whole measure twice, cut once rule. Anyways, so I'm gonna add an extra 1/2 inch past that line, and then it will be perfect for me lengthwise. I want it to be cropped, so it just goes a little bit past my waistline where my high-waisted jeans hit, so I can tuck it in or just tuck in the front. That's usually how I wear my tops. So, and I'm gonna do the same on this. The line on the back, on the shirt back, is slightly curved, so I'm just gonna straighten that out so it matches with the length on the top, on the front top. For the neckline portion of this top, I'm going to finish mine a little differently than the pattern calls for. And I'm using 2 pattern pieces I already had in my pattern library. I'm using the Roscoe blouse, piece number 7 and piece number 9. Piece number 7 is 17.5 inches long by 1.5 inches wide. These are going to be the back ties of the shirt that are going to be connected to the neckline. And piece number 9 is the neck binding piece that we're going to use to finish the neckline. And this is 20.5 inches long, and for this top we need to add an extra 5 inches in length. At least for me, that's what works. So these are those 2 pieces that you'll need to add on to create this top. So first step of sewing, I'm gonna take our 2 back pieces, make sure you cut 2 of them. We're gonna do them right sides together. We're gonna sew down the center back seam, and right here is where the pattern, actually right here, is where the pattern tells you to stop sewing, but I added like 1 3/4 inches because I want the back slit to be up a little bit higher, and I may go even higher than that. I'm just gonna kind of see what this looks like. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna sew from here to here. Okay, so here's my sewn center back seam. I stopped right here. Here's the top of the neckline. Now I'm gonna go finish this edge by serging, and then we are going to finish this opening. Okay, so now this seam edge is all cleaned up, and then so the pattern tells you to fold this under another 1/4 inch, but I think it makes more sense since we finished this edge to just leave it as is. So now what we're gonna do is, let's see, stitch close to pressed edge, squaring, stitching below the opening. So we're just gonna stitch right along the edge, square at the bottom, and go back up just to hold that piece there to finish off the opening. So I'm just gonna go right along the edge here, down, square over, and sew back up. Okay, so here's my finished edge. It looks really neat. I gave it a really good press. And we're going to skip the loop right here because we're just gonna do ties. I'm going to attach ties right here for an exposed binding, and then we're gonna tie it shut. So there's a cute little bow at the back of the neck. Okay, so next we're gonna start on our sleeves. We're gonna sew each sleeve by putting the front and back sleeve right sides together and sewing all the way down 5/8 inches, and then give it a good press and a good finish, and then we will move on. Okay, and I forgot to mention, we cut our sleeve, so we're just gonna do the top of the sleeve right sides together and sew along this seam here, and then we will add on the gathered portion next. Okay, I've got my sleeve, the tops of my sleeves sewn together, and you'll notice there is a curve on the seam, so when I'm pressing them open, I'm using my tailor's ham so I can properly press open along that curve. And then I'm going to go finish my seams on my serger. Okay, so now we need to sew together our front and back bottom sleeve. So here's the pattern. We just sewed this together down the curve. Now we need to sew this edge together. So I'm going to pin right sides together, sew, finish, and then we're going to base the top, and I'll stop after I finish this seam. And I'm gonna do the same for the other side of the other sleeve as well. So here we go. Just a reminder to set your basting stitches wider. So I usually do 4.0 right here. I just have this little knob on my machine to make my stitches smaller or wider. So now it is all set, and then don't forget to change it back when you're done. So I decided I'm gonna sew my basting stitches at 3/8 and then 5/8. Now I have my 2 basting stitches in at the top of the bottom half of my sleeve, and then here's the top half of my sleeve. I'm now gonna gather this long edge to the shorter top of the sleeve. Sorry, this is getting confusing. So I'm gonna pin each edge together and then pull my basting stitches until it fits into this shorter edge. And then we will sew at 3/8 because that is the seam allowance that we added to the bottom and top of our sleeve edges right here. Okay, so here is my sleeve. The bottom of the sleeve is gathered to the top of the sleeve. It's very big. As you can see, I've finished it, pulled out on any threads that were showing. So next, we're gonna sew the front sleeve to the front bodice and the back sleeve to the back bodice, just like this, right sides together. There's a lot of fabric and a lot going on here, but here are my side seams. My sleeves are sewn into the shoulder seam here. So now the pattern has you do the neckline edge, but I'm going to skip ahead and do that last. And I'm going to skip to the side seams. This shirt seems really big. So what I'm gonna do is turn it right sides together and sew the side seam like it's showing here. And I'm just going to baste it at 5/8, and then I'm gonna try it on and see how it fits. And then from there, I will sew it again with a regular stitch length and finish it, or take it in until I like the fit. So this is gonna be personal preference to see what fit you would like, and then we'll move on to finishing the cuffs. So I've pinned my side seam, and then on the underarm and to the hem of the sleeve here. Make sure you line up all of your seams so it all matches up nice and neat. And so now I'm gonna baste at 5/8, and then I'll do the other side and then try it on. Okay, so this is where we're at. I really like the length, and I do like the fit of the bodice a lot. This is probably how I'll wear it, so that's why I'm tucking it in, just to kind of get the full effect. Okay, the only thing I don't like is the top sleeve. It seems like there's a lot of room there, so I think I'm gonna take that in a little, maybe 1/4 to 1/2 inch. And this is all gonna be gathered, so it's gonna look a lot different once it's all finished. But this just seems like too big in here. So I'm gonna take this in a little, but this is perfect. So I don't wanna mess with that. So I'm just going to edit that a little bit, but I think it looks really good. Sorry, it's hard to film backwards. So I'm gonna go make a couple of changes, and then we will finish the bottom of the sleeve. I am so excited to finish the bottom of the sleeve because it's really gonna make the whole shirt. So let's do this. Okay, so here is what where I sewed. So it's about 1/4 of an inch, and then here's the bottom of the sleeve. So I really focused just on the top part because this is all gonna be gathered. So this seems to do the trick. It looks a little bit better, not so baggy on my arm. I really think it's gonna make a huge difference finishing the end of the cuff. So we're gonna move on to that next. Okay, so now we are ready to prep the bottom of the sleeve. I've got my inside seam all finished. So what we're gonna do first, so I have 2 different sizes of elastic here. I was leaning more towards doing a 1/4 inch, but I think I want it to be a little bit more drastic. So I think I'm gonna do a 1/2 inch. And I owe this whole part of the shirt to Natalie Eba. It was also, the Target shirt was also designed this way, but I noticed she recently did a whole tutorial on how to do this cuff. So I will link to her in the notes under the show, but she does a really great tutorial on how to do this. I'm doing mine slightly different. I'm gonna do a slightly shorter ruffle here. Her sleeve was ended right above her elbow, and this is ending at my wrist, so I don't want it to be quite so big. So first we're going to iron this up 1/4 of an inch, and then I'm going to try ironing mine up 1.5 inches, and then we're going to create a casing for our elastic, and that gives us about 3/4 to 1 inch of a ruffle. And I'm going to just iron this up and see how this looks, so hold tight and we'll see. We're kind of experimenting together here, so I'm going to go get this all prepped. Okay, so that was a little bit too long, so what I need to do is I'm going to trim off a 1/2 inch and then iron it up 1/4 of an inch and then another 1.5 inches. So you really just gotta play with the length. I really want it to end like, this is hard to do without 2 hands, like right at the end of my wrist. So I'm going to prep it again and then see how that fits. Okay, so this is going to be perfect, I think. So this is with 1/2 inch cut off, and then I ironed it a 1/2 inch up and then another 1.5 inches, and it's all pinned in place. So I'm gonna go sew it up and try it out, but I think that's gonna be perfect. Okay, so this is just following Natalie's tutorial, but I'll just walk you guys through it too, just to give you a more visual, but she does a really great job again. So I'm going to move my needle over, and so I'm gonna edge stitch along this edge, and then I'm going to sew another line again at about 3/4 of an inch. And we're gonna leave a little opening to slip the elastic inside, and we will see how it looks. For this pattern, the sleeve, the bottom of the sleeve is wider than when you go up higher towards the sleeve. So you're gonna notice the fabric doesn't fully fit when you fold it up. I am just sewing over it anyways. It's gonna be a little bit gathered, but since we're putting elastic in and it's gonna be all gathered anyways, I don't think it's gonna matter. So I'm just gonna keep going with it and we'll see how this looks. Okay, so now I'm sewing the second line of my casing. And it is just under 3/4 of an inch. You can kind of see that. So I'm just gonna go all the way around and then we'll put our elastic in. So this is my 1/2 inch elastic, and I wrapped it around my wrist right where this is gonna sit. I left a little bit of room so it's not too tight, and a little bit of room to have a little seam allowance. So now I'm going to pin my safety pin to the end and then put it inside my sleeve, and then we'll sew the ends together and go from there. Okay, so my elastic is, it's all twisted, sorry. It's in my cuff here, and then I zigzag stitched the ends together, and I'm just gonna trim that, pull it back in, and then just finish this edge once the elastic is all inserted. And then I'll try it on. So exciting. Hey guys, okay. So this is the finished sleeve. Okay, so first we need to finish our ties that are going to be attached to the back of our neckline. This is, these are true biases instructions. So first we're going to fold them in half, wrong sides together. Then we're going to fold them into each side to the half mark. And then in half, top stitch the edge, and then we're going to fold it in at 1/4 and then 1/4 again and top stitch, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna go do all those steps to prepare my neckties. Okay, for the neck binding portion, what you're gonna do first is iron one of the long edges up at 1/2 inch. Then, so this is the back of my shirt, I've pinned my neck binding all the way around. You want it to hang off about 1/2 inch. This is a little bit more because I had some extra, but yeah, you're gonna just pin it all along, right sides together with about 1/2 inch hanging off of the edge. And now I'm going to go and sew it at 1/2 inch all the way around, and then we'll be back. So I have my neck binding sewn on at 1/2 inch around the entire neckline. What we're gonna do now is trim the seam allowance to 3/8, and then we're gonna press our neck binding up away from the shirt. And once that's all pressed in place, we're going to take our necktie that we've already prepared. We're going to extend it 1/2 inch over this finished edge of the back of our shirt. And then we're going to fold our binding right sides together. We're going to finish with a seam right here, going right along this line to finish right here to enclose the necktie and finish off the edge of the back neck of our shirt. So I am just getting ready to sew and finish that back neck edge while also sewing in the back neck tie. So as you can see, I'm just gonna sew a straight line that matches right up with this edge. Okay, so I trimmed the edge and I trimmed off this corner because now we're going to flip this out. Let's see if I can do this with one hand. So that finishes off that back neck edge for us. What we're gonna do now is press and pin this just past our stitching line, and then we're either going to, you can stitch in the ditch or hand sew all of the neck binding down to finish off the neck edge, and then you just tie it in the back to close it. So we're gonna go do the other tie and then finish off this neckline. Okay, so now my neck binding is all prepared and pretty even. Once we give this a good press, it will look even better. It's kind of puffy right now. This is also polyester, so it's a little bit harder to get a super good press on it. But I'm gonna go and hand stitch this all down, I've decided, just so I don't see any stitches on the front, but you can also stitch in the ditch if that's your preferred method. So I'm gonna go hand sew this all down, give it a good press, and then our neck binding will be all done. I just need to hem the shirt. I'm gonna do a 1/4 inch fold and then another 1/4 inch and edge stitch, and it is done.
So our shirt is finished. Congratulations if you're following along. Let me know in the comments if you have any advice or things you'd like to see me do differently in these videos. I'm hoping to be more hands-free in the future, so I can show you a little bit more of the sewing and the pattern alterations in action. But yeah, let me know what you think, and I want to see your shirts if you follow along with this tutorial. So tag me on Instagram at the Sara Project _ or down below in the comments. Thanks so much, guys.